modern communications technology has evolved in such a way that information could easily be attained by the masses. We have the conventional broadcast media. We have cable television. We have radio, and we have our newspapers. That's the conventional way of spreading and gathering news or information. But in the recent years, we have um, come to a point where information is available by the command of your fingertips. No, I'm talking about the information we get from the World Wide Web. Social media, in particular, has been very much a source of this information, which could easily be gathered as well as disseminated. This phenomenon allows for greater, a wider means of um, information that could um, perhaps promote um, a robust discourse, no, or in fact dialogue. But also, on the other hand, you could say that it has swayed falsely public opinion on matters which are of great public importance, talking about politics, religion, social affairs, and even in showbiz. Let's talk about fake news. This is um, the phenomenon that has, they say, caused economy to rise and fall. This has caused people from taking power over government and losing their grip or control over the same. This may have caused public chaos and disorder. That is why this is a matter that must be understood by everybody, not just law students. So, in our jurisdiction under Section 4 of the 1987 Constitution, there is the protection, of course, of the fundamental law on the freedom of expression and of the press. The fundamental law, as you know, is the framework of governance, and it is the restriction of government authority over civil liberties. As many would say, as legal scholars would say, the Constitution is not actually the source of your rights. The Constitution restricts government action against those which are inherently rights which are inherently possessed by every person, because the fact that you are a human being, you are already supposedly to have those rights, no, in which are only restricted as against government in the Bill of Rights. That's why, if you notice, in the Bill of Rights, provisions are stated like this: no law shall be passed abridging the freedom of speech. It does not say every citizen has the freedom of speech, expression, or of the press. So, given that there is this human freedom to speak up or to publicize thoughts, this freedom is not an absolute right. This freedom is embedded with so much responsibilities and limitations, napakaraming limitations. Yun nga, they say your right stops when you injure the rights or encroach upon the rights of others. That's the first practical and social limitation. While you may be free to stretch out your arms, your freedom to stretch out your arms stops when you hit another person. No, you may have the freedom of locomotion, freedom of ownership and whatnot, but your freedom stops when your ownership impedes on the legitimate ownership of the other. When you drive your car, you have the freedom to use thoroughfares, but there are restrictions as to the rights also of pedestrians and other motorists. So freedom, as similar to freedom of expression and of the press, are not absolute. They are limited. And for the fundamental law, this is limited by the Bill of Rights. The state can restrict your vast civil liberties, including these rights. According to former Chief Justice Hilario Davide, every right or freedom carries with it the correlative duty to exercise it responsibly and with due regard for the rights and freedom of others. In short, according to Davide, freedom is not freedom from responsibility, but with responsibility. With your exercise of your freedom comes consequences. Diba? You are free to exercise your rights, but every right has a concomitant result, and you are responsible for those results. While you may speak, for example, you may be held responsible for your utterances when you injure others. When the public requires for accountability, your credibility may be questioned, especially if what you utter may be injurious to the state and of the public. So there is responsibility for every exercise of freedom. In the Philippines, jurisprudence also provides further that some types of speech may be subjected to some regulation by the state under its pervasive police power in order that it may not be injurious to the equal right of others to those of the community or society. The difference in treatment is expected because relevant interest of one type of speech, of some types of speech. Okay, now, um, the principle of auto-limitation restricts the state uh, in its exercise over its authority over the public. However, there may be need to restrict public exercise of the rights when there is the possibility of the endangerment of the very existence of the state or the very welfare and the general peace enjoyed by the society. Let me share some laws which have passed through our jurisdiction and still are existing. Some of them are still existing in relation to fake news. Kasi hindi naman totoo na fake news is not punishable. So in 1973, there was PD number 90, which punishes rumor mongering and spreading of false information. Any person who shall offer, publish, distribute, circulate, or spread rumors, fake news, information, or gossip, or cause the publication, distribution, circulation, or spreading of the same, which cause or tend to cause panic, divisive effects amongst the people, discredit or distrust the duly constituted authority, undermine the stability of government and the objectives of the new society, endanger the public order, or cause damage to the interests of or credit of the state, upon conviction shall be punished by prison correctional. Imprisonment was awaiting then in 1973 during the martial law period for people who may through false information or rumor mongering would perhaps cause instability in government or distrust in the newly instituted or in the duly instituted government. This was in line with the efforts then of government supposedly to stabilize economy and security with the supposed threats of terrorism and rebellion. No, so there was the new society, the Bagong Lipunan then, which was the intention of the Marcos government then, free from rebellion and with a flourishing economy. No? However, the time of Cory in 1986, after the EDSA revolution, respecting the freedom of speech of the public, repealed this law, this presidential decree. This was in November 21 of 1986, well after the 1986 February People Power Revolution. Because instead of promoting the objectives of um, protecting the public and the general peace and tranquility of the country, it has impeded freedom of expression. Hence, the president then, Cory Aquino, repealed PD 90. If you remember, um, the president Marcos acted through presidential decree and executive order for Cory Aquino because at the time of Marcos, it was martial law. Well, you can go back to your history why Marcos was exercising then his powers and prerogatives. But for Cory, Executive Order number 93, or sorry, 65, EO 65, um, Cory was exercising during the interregnum while there was no constitution as yet because the 1987 constitution was yet being drafted by the framers. No? So during the interregnum, after the People Power Revolution, there was the Freedom Constitution, but there was the empowerment of Cory then as president to legislate. Um, even without already, even without PD 90, because of its repeal by Cory in EO number 65, there is a law um, still existing, no? Under the revised penal code. That's Article 154 of the revised penal code, which is actually amended by 10951, which increased the penalty. This is the unlawful use of means of publication and unlawful utterances. It says that the penalty of arrest to minor and a fine ranging from 40,000 pesos to 200,000 pesos shall be imposed upon any person who by means of printing, lithography, and other means of publication, this will include the internet, shall publish or cause to be published news as news any false news which may endanger the public order or cause damage to the interest or credit of the state. So if especially if it endangers the interest or credit of the state and you spread around this information, you may be subjected to the harsher penalties provided by RA 10951. RA 10951 increased the penalty already of what was provided earlier under the revised penal code. So that's first in the revised penal code. There's another law which could fall under the protection against fake news is the law on inciting to rebellion or insurrection, Article 138 of the revised penal code. The penalty of pression mayor in its minimum period shall be imposed upon any person who, without taking any arms or being in open hostility against government, shall incite others to the execution of any acts specified as rebellion, insurrection, or means of speeches, proclamations, writings, emblems, banners, and other representation tending to the same end. We often hear of our activists crying on the streets their plea against government to stop supposed or alleged hostilities, alleged human rights violations of members of the armed forces. That would be qualified as false information. That would be qualified as um, inciting to rebellion or sedition especially when they incite the public to take arms against the armed forces or government for its supposed violations of human rights. If you notice, this keeps on going every day. There is just the practice of maximum tolerance on the part of government. That's why I do firmly believe that there is still strong democracy strongly and powerfully used as a means to further ideals and ideologies. The maximum tolerance of the previous administrations, even the time of Cory, Ramos, Erap, Arroyo, Pinoy, and Duterte recently, these types of tolerances against even these speeches that would tend to already be considered as sedition or inciting to rebellion or insurrection um, would be ano na um, would have been for other instances or would have been grounds to take in some people for their utterances, but the maximum tolerance exercised by these administrations are quite commendable. These are manifestations of the strong democracy that our country has. This is amended again by RA 10951 with pression correctional as a penalty in its maximum period and a fine not exceeding 400,000. Next is libel. When you slander a person publicly through publication, libel is the malicious and public imputation of a crime, vice, or defect in imaginary or real, di ba? So, fake news. Any act, omission, condition, status, or circumstances tending to cause the dishonor, discredit, or contempt of a natural or juridical person. So, this is amended by the law with pression correctional or fine ranging from 40,000 to 1.2 million or both, in addition to the civil action which may be brought by the offended party. So if you come to think of it, um, if you come to think of it, libel is no ordinary crime with RA 10951 because of the increase in the penalty now. So when you malign a person by spreading false news against him, imputing to him crime, vice, or any defect, then you could be sent to jail and be made to pay the fine also. Speaks of another action, this time not already under the civil code, but it could be under the, not under the revised penal code, but now under the new civil code in Article 26, which um, allows for damages for intriguing another, causing him to be alienated from his friends. Okay? So every person shall respect the dignity and personality, privacy, and peace of mind of his neighbors and other persons. The following and similar acts, though may not constitute a criminal offense, shall produce or cause a cause of action for damages, prevention, or other relief. It may be made to pay moral damages or may be enjoined by the court from continuing your rumor mongering, your intriguing against your neighbors, false news against your neighbors. Okay? Pwede ka magbayad. And the bayad naman, the payment, depends on the character and reputation also of the neighbor whom you intrigued or made subject of your rumor mongering. Okay? This new law in Section 6 of RA 11469, the Bayanihan to Heal as One Act, in addition to the acts of remission already punished by existing laws, the revised penal code, the civil code, no? The following offenses shall be punishable with imprisonment of 2 months or a fine of not less than 10,000 pesos, but not more than 1,000,000, or both. Such imprisonment and fine at the discretion of the court. If individuals or groups create, perpetuate, spread fake information regarding the COVID-19 crisis on social media and other platforms, such as such information having a valid beneficial effect, having no valid or beneficial effect on the population, and are clearly geared to promote chaos, panic, anarchy, fear, and confusion. These are fake news intending to create chaos in the community and discrediting information that are valid. No? Like I know of some people who believe that still until now that the vaccine would uh, make people zombies, and then they would say that all of them are dead. Di ba? Um, this this is the fake news on the COVID pandemic. Okay, so this is punishable. Okay, there was this religious leader who had issues against vaccinations without any scientific or medical basis, and because of his pronouncement, many followers became confused and refused the vaccination. Imagine the damage you could do if you're a person of influence, diba? And you spread false news. Um, in the past, we have examples, no, of fake news, no, like the time of Cory during the coup d'etat. No? There was this journalist Louis Beltran who made a comment and published the same, saying that Cory hid under her bed. I remember I was very young then. Cory allowed people to go to her residence and showed everyone, showed the media men, showed media that it's impossible for her to hide under her bed because under there is not, you know, the bed does not have any space for her to hide under it, no. Maybe she took it literally, but that, if you malign a leader calling her a coward during a time that the public security and the existence of government is at stake, it may weaken morale of soldiers on the ground. It may also cause confusion as to the stability of government in the public. So actually, Louis Beltran apologized. The case went on against Beltran. Some examples of fake news. Oh, we have a very abundant source of this online. Um, One day, the Philippine will get a brave man like Duterte. Queen Elizabeth did not say that. Okay. AFP chopper, nasakay si Bongo, nag-crash, land sa Albay. That's fake news. Um, nag-announce na si Mark Zuckerberg na hindi libre ang Facebook. Subalit courtesy ng Pangulong Duterte and Marcos, libre po sa atin, etc. etc. Fake news. Mokha Uson blog. Arnold Schwarzenegger tags Duterte as a real starring fighter. Also fake news. He did not say that. This one, okay. President Duterte is the best according to Putin. Proud and supportive of the president like him, etc. etc. NASA hailed Duterte as the best president in the solar system. I think this is parody na po na siya. Diba? Parody na sila. Pia Wurzbach arrested at Kuala Lumpur airport with 10 kilograms of cocaine. Fake news, fake news, fake news. Confirmed Davao City Mayor Duterte dies after a short illness. Still also fake news. But according to Roque, kung walang fake news, hindi natin malalaman ang true news. Let there be free marketplace of ideas. I think there is a difficulty, there was a difficulty on the part of Roque in understanding what the free marketplace of idea means. I hope you got something from this lecture. Have a great day ahead. Thank you.